Thanks everyone for coming back and joining us for the final session of today. I'm actually really excited. We've talked a lot about technology throughout the whole day. Everybody's been really engaged. They've been asking lots of questions, and I hope that you have that same vim and vigor for this final session. Before we go into the Q&A with the executives, I want to place another poll, and you'll see that pop up on your screen. So what do you see as the main obstacle to expanding wireless connectivity to meet demand for bandwidth? It's a key question that everybody's talking about. Let's push this poll. All right, while you are all thinking about how you are going to meet demand for bandwidth moving forward and answering that poll question, we're going to launch into some Q&A. And we have a huge cast of characters here. Many of them you've seen, you've heard from, you know, you love. We've added a few. So we've added Raymond DeGraff. We have added Brian Shepard. Shepik, and we have Vibhu, Scott, Atul, all back to have a chat. As we mentioned earlier, Sakid was not going to be available because he was traveling. So let's just launch in with the first question. And it's actually a question that we got in one of the sessions previously that I want to circle back to. And that's that I see 5G as a cell carrier technology set, and I run an enterprise network. While I understand the benefits for users outside my building and campuses, I need to be able to control the user's access inside. Wi-Fi solutions seem to be a way forward for me, or will Cambium deliver 5G for enterprise internal use? We touched on it earlier, but Atul, I thought you might want to give your answer to that question.
Sure. As I mentioned in my session that for networking, standards are just so important. And 5G is an emerging standard. And so for us adopting the standard and then adapting it for fixed wireless broadband, adapting it for private networks, those are the right initiatives. Those are the right directions for us because standards bring cost effectiveness to the ecosystem, whether it's Wi-Fi, whether it's 5G, whether it's emerging Wi-Fi 6, doesn't matter. It just brings that ecosystem, which is very cost effective. We leverage that cost effectiveness of the ecosystem, the protocols of the ecosystem, and then we build a solution together for enterprises and service providers. For enterprises, control, security, and that, in a lot of ways that access control you talk about, that's pretty important. And so our private networks, while it will leverage the 5G, ecosystem will provide you those type of attributes. And yet, as we said in the first session, our goal always, our mission always remains, give the mission critical quality and give affordable pricing, both for enterprises and service providers. And the 5G and Wi-Fi 6 standards are now enabling bringing that economic systems. So I'm very excited about that.
Absolutely. And I think that this is a critical consideration for a lot of organizations. So it's good to see that, we've talked a lot today about this whole marrying of Wi-Fi and 5G and how that's going to roll out. Do we have the answers for the poll question at this point? Okay, let's hear what people had to say about bandwidth considerations. Show the polling results. Okay, available bandwidth becoming a real big issue. Funding, and I think there's a lot of surprise that we all need money to fund things. The other is really interesting. I really wish we could unpack that in an easy way. Any other thoughts from the panelists? Does this make sense to you? Is this what you thought you'd see?
Scott, it'll be good to get your perspective because you talk with a lot of customers. Is this what you kind of hear from our customers and channel partners?
Well, I think the first, not inconsistent. I'm going to interpret available bandwidth to mean spectrum, and that has been an ongoing challenge historically. But I think what's pretty exciting right now on that front is how much spectrum is now coming online. If you look at the 6 gigahertz piece, and we presented on that today, that's an exciting development for unlicensed spectrum. If you look at 60 gigahertz is coming online around the world and readily available in many parts of the world already. That's really exciting. and you see both the 3 gig band, certainly in the US with CBRS, 150 megahertz of spectrum, but similar actions being taken in the UK and other places. So there is spectrum coming online, and I think the next 2 years, 3 years are going to be pretty exciting as technologies leverage that new spectrum. I think funding goes without question. One of the trends that we do see around the world is government stepping in, particularly with COVID recovery, to provide funding in recognition that broadband access is so crucial to society today, and governments around the world are making funds available, and I think that you'll see that continue certainly through 21 and perhaps even accelerate beyond that. And then on the technology front, everybody on this virtual dais, I guess, is technologists, and we can certainly embrace that. But between the standards and what's going on with the silicon, the technology is there. It's a matter of us harnessing that technology, leveraging the standards, applying it to the spectrum that's opening up. That is not, in my mind, a concern. It's an opportunity. It's the tool that's going to address the ask.
Got it. Okay. We've got quite a flurry of questions coming in fast and furiously here. So one is, it was from a previous session. Why do you believe the access to 6 gigahertz spectrum will be quicker than CBRS was on the regulatory side?
Wow, I really hope so.
Yeah.
It took a long time for the gestation of CBRS. You thought that elephants carried their young for a long time. CBRS was in the oven for an extended period of time. But I think that there's 2 things that are happening here. One is the practical experience of CBRS and SAS as it applies to AFC. And the FCC has demonstrated and seen that it works. The providers that are out there providing SaaS services have demonstrated that they can do it competently, that they can do it accurately, and they can do it consistently. So I think there's far greater confidence in this notion of shared spectrum now than there was ever through the development of CBRS. So I think that piece alone will accelerate access in the US, given the reference to CBRS, to 6 gigahertz. I also think you need to break apart 6 gigahertz between indoor and outdoor, and the low power indoor systems, I think, will certainly be available in parts of the world before outdoor. But I think outdoor will come along, and what will help drive that is the clear need per the poll to spectrum to make broadband available.
Excellent. And we all hope that it's fast, right? Anybody else have any comments? Okay. If not, I'll go on to another question, which is around how do you keep the big networking vendors out as fixed wireless and 60 gigahertz markets are going to grow?
Yeah, so let me take that. I think, first of all, we don't need to keep anybody out. The more, the merrier. Because as the rising tide raises the water, let all the boats lift, right? There is no point in kind of figuring out. Fundamentally, those who are innovative, they will accelerate. Those who are not innovative, they get left behind. It's very simple. And those who are listening to customers, understanding the needs and adapting properly and putting an economic equation. It's very easy to do aggressive marketing, lots of claims, but ultimately you have to deliver the solution, which is efficient, effective, cost-effective, high quality, right? Those are the fundamentals. And that's what we do. So I think we don't need to keep anybody out. If anything, we move up the value chain, right? Because we are delivering scalable solutions where we used to have thousands of people or customers or subscribers. Now we have tens of thousands of subscribers. Where we have tens of thousands of subscribers, some of the networks have 100,000 or more subscribers. So we are kind of moving up the value chain. And so at this point, I think there's opportunity for everyone. Just keep innovating and keep delivering the solutions. Broadband is a lifeline across every country, every community. So it's an opportunity for all.
Okay, another question came in. It said, with the advances coming, is Cambium going to stick with the leave no SM behind?
Very good question. Very good question. We need to give bonus to this question. I, I really like that. Leave no SM behind. So congratulations. That's a very good thought. And you have actually captured the way we think. We really think hard about investment protection by our customers. Investment protection, even of our channel partners, because they invest in training, they invest in, with us over the years. Now, we work hard to make sure there is backwards compatibility. We work hard to make sure as many SMs can work. And a good example of that is Medusa. Medusa was backwards compatible. It worked with SMs installed, and you guys love it. You love it even today. We have, we are installing so many Medusas everywhere. We value that. However, there comes a time when you leapfrog. And when you leapfrog, you bring next generation of bandwidth, next generation of transactions, number of transactions you can handle, next generation of frequencies. So I think once in a while, there is a discontinuity for you to ride a new discontinuity, a new price performance curve. But we work hard to make sure we give you that leave no SM behind and investment protection program.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And I do think we're at a very interesting time in terms of technology transitions and what the network of the future is going to look like, and what are the not only the spectrum requirements, the latency, the wireless technologies, but the management, the security, how we think about where we do analytics. It's a really interesting time in the market, a great time for us to be building these solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more point, Maribel, is CBRS. We made sure we didn't leave Essence behind. And Scott and team and Brian and team working with customers, understanding their needs. We made sure that our over-the-air upgrade works with existing SMs. So that's an example of leave no SM behind. So, but I'm very sure in the future, we may bring some very good discontinuity, but phenomenal price performance that you may say, okay, my SM, which was installed 6 years back, 5 years back, now I'm going to give you this price performance and also have a new package which you charge for. So those things will happen, but we work hard to give you backwards compatibility.
Makes sense. There's another question about spectrum. Spectrum's a big deal today. So what is the next spectrum frontier after 6 gigahertz and 60 gigahertz? TVWS seems to be pretty much hype. What do you guys think?
I would let maybe Scott make some comments, and then I might have a few comments. And maybe Scott and Vibhu, if you guys have any comments there.
Sure. I could talk a little bit about, maybe start with TV white space. There's probably a philosophical discussion that could take place over a beer on that one. TV white space did show great promise as a band, particularly from a propagation standpoint. And I even before what is now Cambium was embedded within Motorola, we were exploring leveraging TV white space. And a couple things were counter to that use that you see changing in the market today in general, not specifically with TV white space. And that is, one, there was no real good commercial silicon available to exploit the band. And that remains true today. And as a result of that, it really drives costs for a solution that really put it out of the economic means of a viable solution for the manufacturer, but more importantly, the end user, the network operator. Second is the regulatory oversight that, in particular, the FCC imposed, really put some challenging constraints on use of the band. Unfortunately, around the world, the band is underutilized. There are countries around the world that made pieces of it available, very narrow channels, bandwidth is constrained, costs are still high. And that raises some concerns on the band itself and the prospect of it being refarmed. So at present, Cambium has no plans for TV white space. That could certainly change in the future if the underlying technologies and silicon and regulatory oversight change. But at present, we do not have plans for TV white space. There is other bands that are opening up. There's effort in 7 gig in different parts of the world. that there is spectrum opening up in I'll say the 28 plus or minus area, 24 gig around the world that's opening up that shows great promise. Recently, the FCC has taken a stronger position on 5.9. So that there are slices of spectrum in different regulatory environments around the world that Cambium is keeping an eye on. There's also, I'll say, refarming taking place below 1 gig. That's kind of interesting. That might be something that we can exploit for the market as well. Vibhu, do you want to add some thought there too?
Sure. So spectrum, there are other couple of things which is evolving, right? Definitely there is additions in unlicensed spectrum across the world. In millimeter wave in US, we have now 6 to 7 gigahertz coming up. So that is one thing. There is another thing which is taking place quite a bit with where to make the spectrum affordable. There's a lot of effort going on. One is shared spectrum, which is CBRS or the 6 gigahertz. We are doing that. And there was link level where point-to-point links, you would buy spectrum for that. But it's going beyond that, and particularly for industrial use cases, there is locally available licenses which is happening, which is like a 150 meter radius or 200 meter radius or a kilometer radius. You have that license. So that will actually help the private networks quite a bit to make it affordable. And that is another thing which has started quite a bit. So there are two fronts where spectrums are getting increased. One is unlicensed spectrum is getting increased. Sharing of spectrum is happening. And thirdly, making it more locally available.
Thanks, Vibhu.
Okay, we have another question from the audience, and we'll hopefully see if this is something that you think you can answer without getting anybody in trouble. Is it possible for Cambium to develop a direct replacement gigabit version for the all-outdoor CMM4, presumably a CMM6, aka part of the TX series? Maybe this will have built-in power backup capabilities.
Yeah, so I think maybe Scott and Vibhu are right.
That question came up in my session as well. And we do have a solution that's working its way through the development cycle. It is based on our enterprise class switching and supports PoE out to power the breadth of our portfolio, as well as providing our really value-added synchronization capabilities to our portfolio. We haven't yet announced anything publicly. I would expect that to be in the near-term horizon. So a little bit more patience with the audience or whomever asked that question, but I think you'll be pleased with what you see on the horizon.
Perfect.
Anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, no, yeah, very soon, very soon. And very powerful. It leapfrogs a lot of redundancy built into it, and dual power supply, dual sync, where if your sync goes down, you can use one way or multiple ways of syncing. So, and very powerful layer 2, layer 3 capabilities. You can replace multiple switches with, typically in under the tower, you have multiple switches, right? And you can replace those with just one switch. So very powerful, very clean solution, and you're going to love it.
That's a great way to close on that. So one of the things that we've been talking a lot with clients about is constraints in the supply chain. And we've seen a lot of constraints in the supply chain since COVID-19 had started. And I'm wondering to what extent Cambium is impacted by this.
Yeah, maybe Raymond, please take this.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Just a couple of thoughts there, right? So it's obvious that there's global constraints in the supply chain, and I will just mention a couple. The semiconductor shortage that is seen, what everybody is reading in the news on especially the automotive industry, but is hitting the tech products as well. We're definitely impacted by that. We were countering that by putting a solid forecast out there and having good relationships with our key OEM partners in that one, Qualcomm as one of them, right? And we're getting our fair share from the semiconductor piece. So That's one of them. The other one that's a little bit more tedious is the logistics supply constraint that we're seeing with the containers, the lack of empty containers in China. So we're working, or it's being worked through the system. It's not very clear when that is completely relieved, but we're working with a lot of you as well to get as many containers available to keep that moving. But that's definitely a current constraint that we're seeing. There's the AKM factory fire on the CXCOs, right? The crystals, where a factory fire in November took a whole bunch of capacity out. We're working on alternatives there. We're making good progress there, of course. But in general, if you all pull that together, right, it's we are having a great surge in demand, right? What you're seeing in our public statements as well. We are setting ourselves up with putting a good, strong forecast out there to our vendors. And with the good relationship we have with all our vendors, all the way from the manufacturers to the assembly houses to the component providers, we are bettering that to the best ability that we can. And I think the general statement is that we're getting more than our fair share, but we're definitely not out of the woods. I think it will be a global challenge for next couple of quarters for sure. And we're looking for your help there as well to kind of put your orders out there as far as you have visibility, right? Help us there, because the more visibility we've got, the better we can kind of respond to your requirements and our shared customer requirements.
Great, thanks.
Okay. I want to remind everybody you can ask questions in the Q&A tab, but I actually have a question. And recently, many of my customers at Lopez Research have inquired about connected camera solutions as it relates to wireless networks. So CCTV, counting, surveillance for defect tracking on manufacturing lines, lots of different ways that they're thinking about using it. What advice would you provide to these organizations or partners that are serving them?
Yeah, so let me ask Brian to pitch in. Brian and team works with a lot of customers worldwide. They get exposed to a lot of solutions, a lot of customer issues, which we help solve with our solutions, our products. So Brian, if you can take over.
So this is really the reason we have 10,000-ish connected partners in our connected partner program. You know, this would be an example, right? It's a fairly specific group of segments that are looking for video surveillance, and video surveillance in a mining organization might have a very different need from a city that's doing, you know, traffic monitoring or something like that. So there's a lot of integrators that have developed a practice specializing in this. And what we're trying to do is make sure they all know about Cambium backhaul solutions, right? And in general, there's a great variety of backhaul solutions. You know, in some cases, a narrow band is sufficient. In other cases, you need multi-gigabit capacity, depends on the resolution and storage and how remote the location is. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I think, you know, in general, my biggest advice is if you don't have a partner with that expertise, an integrator that you work with as an end customer, if you don't have that partner and don't have that expertise in-house, you know, let us know and we'll point you to one of our connected partners that has that expertise, that's in your area, that specializes in your vertical segment.
Yeah, and by the way, Brian keeps a lot of attention to details on the channels, products, solutions, because he was trained in US Navy on a nuclear sub.
Attention to detail, it's important.
Yeah, he has attention to details, and he teaches a lot of things to us also.
That's great. There's another question that came in from the audience that says, is there a product that will replace EPMP 3K to provide gigabit solutions in the license band such as 6 gigahertz?
Yeah, I'll let maybe Vibhu answer, and Scott, if you can give your color after Vibhu is done.
EPMP is primarily a Wi-Fi band product. So we have done some innovations where we get to the edge and of the Wi-Fi boundaries and are able to provide solutions in that area and in which is applicable to many countries. And So that's the kind of 6 gigahertz product, very upper end of 6 gigahertz is where we have so much solutions.
Okay.
So I'll add to that, maybe in reading between the lines of the question itself. We do have intentions of developing a full 6 gig solution on the EPMP platform. Right now, we're kind of focused on the next generation. So the EPMP, you've seen may or may not have seen the EPMP 400 series, the 425 and the 400 connectorized that are now in market. And that reflects the first step in that 4th generation of EPMP. You can see a 6 gigahertz generation to follow on that same architecture. On the Wi-Fi bands that Vibhu mentioned, the 5 gigahertz specifically, to reinforce Atul's comments on backwards compatibility, that is a design objective in that 4th generation to be backwards and forwards compatible, as we were with the 3000 platform. So good things are happening on that platform, and it's unfortunate that Sakit wasn't here to spend more time on that, as it's his passion and his team's passion. But more to follow, good things, all in the right direction and consistent with the question.
Great. So I have another question. So I know that we talked a lot today about the different wireless technologies, and portfolio solutions are great, but there's been a certain ease to like the one size fits all kind of model. So what has Cambium done to minimize complexity for its customers?
As I look at network evolution, I think the winners are going to bring simplicity. Winners are going to bring more integration of complex standards and technologies, and yet hide it under the wraps, hide it with good tools. And yet when somebody needs a lower level knob to turn few things, it's accessible. So it's one of those things, you don't want to unleash the complexity. You really want to have simplicity. That's why our tagline is wireless that just works. That's what we use. And that was the genesis of Cambium with Canopy. Canopy was the genesis of the category, point to multipoint. And they brought that simplicity. That's why it was such a phenomenal product and solution. So I think we really believe in that. And CN Maestro, I don't know of another company which has a single pane of glass with point-to-point, point-to-multipoint, Wi-Fi, LTE, switching, 60 gigahertz, all these woven in a fabric. I don't know of another company. And the reason is we believe in that simplifying the network. Because I think, for example, when we work with the school districts, many school districts use Cambium products, Wi-Fi as well as fixed wireless broadband. And we always tell them that our job is to give you a network and solutions so you can educate children. You can educate people. You don't need to be busy with just network tweaking. And that mindset needs to come, I think, everywhere. Now that broadband is lifeline, broadband is such fundamental utility inside your home, inside your enterprise. After COVID, our job to simplify has become even more serious. So I think you will see us constantly strive to bring new technologies and yet demystify the complexity.
Yeah. I would like to add a couple of points. And there are two fronts. One is even when we are bringing complex technologies, let's say 3GPP, like LTE. When we use LTE to create our access points, the code is where the complexity comes. And for our customers, code is not as big, so we didn't have to bring as complex a core. And we embedded the core right at the tower level, right? So made the core very simple. No EPC, the BBUs had consisted of everything and made it a lot more simple. That's one. And secondly, when solutions are deployed, many times it's combination. Let's say in enterprise, you are deploying Wi-Fi access point, then you're deploying switches. More often than not, you will end up making mistakes in the port configuration, the VLAN configurations on your ports, on the switches, as should be matching to what the Wi-Fi VLANs are. And people miss that. we automated that you configure it for the network, and the switch automatically discovers what those VLANs should be. So there are a lot of minor things which we do so that when you're deploying the whole solutions together, it becomes easier. And thirdly, one solution shouldn't fit all. If you look at CN Maestro, Atul touched on it. CN Maestro has various templates, and these templates are for different type of networks. And when you use those templates, it just makes your life easier across different products. So.
Great, thank you, Maribel.
Yes, actually, Atul, I wanted to go back to you. I wanted to give you the opportunity at the end of the session, because we're starting to come to a close, to talk about the 3 things that you think or that you hope that the attendees are going to take away from this Cambium connection.
You know, I think the first thing I want us to take is that being wireless and networking professionals, connecting people is bringing a lot of goodness, right? So just to give you an idea, you know, over the year, Cambium has shipped over 8 million radios to 150 million countries, 150 countries, connecting about 100 million people approximately. And that is not possible without you, our channel partners, and many customers guiding us and working with us. So together, we are bringing a lot of goodness. So that's kind of point number 1. Point number 2 is our best years are ahead, because the innovation which is going on in wireless, we have gone from the days of 1 megabit to now multiple gigabits in wirelessly without digging a single trench. That's why we say, if it can be wireless, it will be wireless, right? That's the second key point about technologies and all that. I think the third point I want to make is that together, I think we got to keep innovating and keep innovating with the applications and end user in mind, because networks should be invisible. Network should be increasingly a very enabling building block, which is very easy to use, handles quality of service, handles quality, just reliability, resilience, all the things, so that users can focus on their task and not the tools. And my wife is a teacher, and I noticed that post-COVID, the amount of work they all have to do to sometimes get Wi-Fi going, sometimes get network going. Students are online, and many students have no laptops. Many students have not as good connectivity. They still deal with that. They support all those students. They nurture those students. So the professionals we are enabling are working extra hard to go to this digital age, and we are an enabling block. So I think our job is to keep bringing that goodness through simplicity. And those are my kind of key thoughts. And I wish all of you and your families health and good life, especially in this post-COVID environment. So our best wishes to all of you. Thanks, Maribel.
That's a wonderful way to close the session, with well wishes for all. So I want to thank all of the panelists for joining. I want to thank all the attendees for being here. And on behalf of Cambium Networks, thank you for joining us for Cambium Connections. We hope you found the event interesting, thought-provoking, give you some actionable insight to move forward with your solutions. I wanted to let you know that this platform will be live for a week. So you can come back and rewatch any sessions, or if you wanted to say, hey, did I get that right? It'll be here for you. And after that session, it will be posted on Cambium's YouTube channel. So if you haven't done so already, please fill out the event survey, and thank you for your time and attention. Be well and go forth and build amazing wireless networks.
Great, thank you, Maribel, and thanks everyone.
You have learned to talk, and also to remain silent and listen, to lay claim to your space, and to share it, to go far and discover the things that are closest to you, to change your mind, places, and habits. You have learned the importance of technology and respect for nature. You have learned that one is stronger when together, even when not in the same room. That one can finish first and also last. You have learned to be curious, to invent, and to discover. And you know that you will continue to do so. We do only one thing so that you can do many. Cambium Networks, wireless that just works.